Keanu Reeves was once mocked by the workers at a bike dealership. Little did they know. He was the owner. On a quiet afternoon, Keanu Reeves walked into Arch Motorcycle, his very own dealership. He wasn't there to flaunt his latest bikes or take one for a spin. No, he was there on a mission, a quiet observation. He wanted to see how his employees treated customers when he wasn't around. Lately, he'd noticed a few things that bothered him, and today he was going to find out why. As Keanu strolled through the showroom, Jake and Mark, two of his employees, were huddled behind the counter, laughing amongst themselves. But it wasn't a kind laughter. It was full of mockery and judgment. "Did you see that guy who just left? He couldn't even start the bike." "What a joke," Jake scoffed, clearly enjoying himself. Mark joined in, adding, "Yeah, and he asked for a custom bike. What's he gonna do with that? Show off in front of his friends?" Keanu stood silently in the background, pretending not to notice. He calmly took in the sight of the bikes on display, his face expressionless, though his mind was racing. He had worked hard to create an atmosphere of respect in his dealership, but right now he was seeing none of that. He wanted to see how Jake and Mark would behave in front of a customer, and so far they weren't giving him any reason to be proud. After a few moments, Mark spotted Keanu standing by the bikes. He shot a quick look at Jake before calling out, "Hey, you looking for something, or are you just wasting time?" Keanu didn't immediately respond. Instead, he took his time examining a custom bike on the floor, letting the question hang in the air. Jake, now noticing Keanu, flashed him a grin. "We've got some beginner bikes in the back if you don't know what you want," he said, sizing Keanu up, clearly underestimating him. Keanu finally turned to face them, his eyes calm but intense. "I'm just looking. But I'll know exactly what I want," he replied, his voice smooth yet authoritative. The two workers exchanged a glance, uncertainty creeping in, but they didn't back down. They didn't recognize him, so they continued their dismissive behavior. Keanu kept moving around the showroom, quietly observing the bikes, but his focus was on the workers now. Jake and Mark, completely unaware of who he was, continued their mocking chatter about past customers. Keanu wasn't fazed. He knew exactly what was going on. They had no idea they were being watched by the man who could change everything for them with a single decision. Jake leaned over the counter, still laughing. "Man, you should have seen that guy earlier. He had no idea about the specs on the bike." "He was totally clueless," Jake chuckled before looking at Keanu. "Bet this guy's the same. Doesn't even know how to look at a bike right." Mark nodded along, but as Keanu walked toward the counter, the mood shifted. The weight of the silence settled in. For the first time, the workers felt uneasy. They couldn't figure out what it was about Keanu that made him stand out from the usual customers. He didn't engage in small talk. His stillness, his composure was unsettling. Trying to regain control of the situation, Jake sneered. "What's up, old man? Ready to buy one of these or just taking up space?" Keanu's eyes moved toward the bike behind the counter, but he didn't respond immediately. Instead, he walked towards it slowly, each step deliberate. The workers watched him, still uncertain of who he was or what he was doing. He seemed like someone who knew exactly what he wanted, but they kept up their mocking attitude. When Keanu finally reached the bike, he paused and spoke, his voice calm but carrying undeniable weight. "You're quick to judge people based on how they look or what they know. But you might be missing something important," he said, his eyes locking on Jake and Mark, who froze. Neither of them had any idea who Keanu was, but his words hit hard. They felt the shift, though they couldn't quite explain why. The air in the room thickened as Keanu's words sank in. The silence stretched, making both Jake and Mark uneasy. Their confidence wavered, but neither of them broke the silence. Jake, however, was the first to speak, his voice less certain now. "What do you mean?" he asked, trying to hold on to his previous bravado, but his tone was defensive. Keanu didn't respond right away. He continued to study the bike, his fingers tracing the frame. The worker's eyes followed him, still unsure of what to make of him. Keanu wasn't in a rush. He had all the time in the world. He was in control, even if they didn't realize it yet. After a long pause, Keanu finally spoke again. It's not about what people know or how much they have. It's about respect. When you mock others, you lose sight of what truly matters, he said, his tone unwavering. The words hit harder than Jake and Mark anticipated. They exchanged a glance, uncertainty flooding their expressions. They didn't understand why Keanu was so fixated on respect, but for the first time, they felt a flicker of doubt about their actions. Jake scratched his head, his usual cocky demeanor faltering. There was something about Keanu that felt different. Maybe it was his calmness, or the way he spoke with such conviction. Jake didn't know why, but something inside him told him that this wasn't just another customer. Mark, however, tried to brush it off, still trying to maintain his tough exterior. Come on, man. Relax. We were just having a little fun. Don't take it so seriously. But Keanu wasn't smiling. He turned his gaze on Mark, his eyes steady, unwavering. I don't take it lightly, he said, his voice firm. You should consider how you treat people. It's not just about business. It's about dignity. Mark faltered. The tough guy act was crumbling, and a feeling of guilt crept up. He had never thought about it that way before. What did dignity have to do with his job? Jake, who usually dominated the room with his loud personality, found himself suddenly quiet, unsure of how to react. The dynamic in the showroom had shifted. For the first time, they weren't in control of the conversation. Keanu was. And now, he had planted a seed of doubt in their minds. The tension in the room was unbearable, but Jake finally broke the silence. Okay, he muttered, his voice quieter, more reflective than before. Maybe we crossed the line a bit. His expression had softened. I get it now. We shouldn't have treated people that way. Mark stood still processing everything, but Keanu let the silence hang for a moment, giving him time to think. He didn't rush them. Finally Mark spoke. Yeah man, I'm sorry. We didn't mean to disrespect you. We were just messing around. Keanu nodded slowly, acknowledging their apologies but not letting them off easily. It's not about realizing who I am, he said, his voice carrying weight. It's about how you treat people. The respect you show them, no matter who they are. Jake and Mark nodded, the lesson finally sinking in. They understood now. It wasn't about being the smartest or the loudest. It was about respecting everyone they interacted with, whether it was a customer or a colleague. Mark cleared his throat, his voice quieter now. You're right. We were jerks. We didn't think about it like that. He paused, taking a deep breath. I'm really sorry, man. Jake stepped forward, looking Keanu in the eye, his expression genuine for the first time. Yeah, same here. I should have been better. I'm sorry for disrespecting you. Keanu's eyes stayed calm, but there was a sharpness to them. You can apologize all you want, he said, but real change comes when you start respecting people every day, in every interaction. That's the only way you'll grow, not just as workers but as people. Jake and Mark stood in stunned silence, absorbing the gravity of Keanu's words. They understood now that respect wasn't something you could demand. It was something you earned. Keanu turned to leave, his task complete. But as he reached the door, he stopped and glanced back over his shoulder. Remember, he said, his voice soft but firm, it's not about how much you sell. It's about how you treat the people who walk through that door. With that, he left Arch Motorcycle, leaving Jake and Mark to reflect on the lesson they had just received. Later that day, a new customer walked in. A man in his 30s, dressed casually, looking a bit unsure as he scanned the showroom. Jake and Mark exchanged a glance, but this time there was no mockery, no condescension. They greeted him with warmth and respect, offering assistance without judgment. They took the time to explain the features of the bikes, answering every question with patience, making sure the man felt valued. As the customer left with a new bike, smiling and shaking their hands in gratitude, Jake and Mark shared another look. This time there was no awkwardness, just a quiet understanding. They had learned something invaluable from Keanu's visit, and they would carry that lesson forward. It wasn't about showing off their knowledge or feeling superior. It was about building relationships based on trust and respect. As the day ended, Jake and Mark both knew they had been given a second chance. Not just to be better employees, but better people. If you found this story impactful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more lessons that can change the way we see the world. Thanks for watching.